You're listening to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the community for the best sales and marketing professionals in the aviation industry. You can't learn to fly just from a book. You learn from other pilots who know the tools, the skills, and the territory. Your hosts, John and Paula Williams, are your sales and marketing test pilots. They take the risks for you and share strategies, relevant examples, hacks, and how-tos. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a thing.
Welcome to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, episode number 96, Sales Accountability. This actually will be almost as interesting as last week's episode about sex, right?
Well, we'll see.
We'll see, exactly. I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you ladies and gentlemen out there sell more products and services in the aviation world.
Absolutely. So please use the hashtag AvGeekMarketing. That's AVGeekMarketing. We look for those hashtags on social media so that we can find any questions, comments, anything else that you have on this or any other episode or webinar or post or anything else that we do, and reply to those and make sure that...
No, you should really change the automation of that last picture.
Yeah? Yeah,
because it makes it look like we're falling on our face.
Oh, man. If you're... listening to this instead of watching, we actually just have a slide effect where it looks like the slides fall, so it does look like we fall on our face, but we're not going to do that. So
yeah, we need to fly up.
Okay, I will change that for the next episode. So yeah, you're also welcome to comment on a post or a YouTube video or anything else. We do watch those, and we do try to make this as interactive as we can, because we know it's very important to listen to you guys, and that's where we get our best ideas and things like that. So, all right, big ideas for this week. Sales accountability is a failure point in many aviation businesses. We also want to talk about putting pressure on the system, not on the salespeople.
Absolutely.
And the third thing is we want to talk about the fact that the buck stops at the top. If the boss has a bad attitude about sales, the business has little chance of success. So this is something we've run into more than once.
More than you would think.
More than you would even believe. So if we had to point to one reason that a business in the aviation industry struggles or fails, this would have to be the number one reason. Would you agree?
Very likely. People just don't get it. I mean, everybody sells every time they talk to somebody, if it's only selling them on an idea or an approach or something that they're trying to convince them of.
Absolutely. So, we like to say, and we say this a lot, nothing happens until somebody sells something. It doesn't matter how many airplanes you have. It doesn't matter how great your product is. It doesn't matter that it's better than the competition. It doesn't matter how well capitalized you are. None of that matters if you don't make any sales.
That's right.
You have no reason for being in business unless you have passengers, customers, clients, patients, whatever it is that you call the people that give you money for whatever it is that you do, right?
Right.
Okay.
You sell a product or service, then whoever's giving you the money is the point where you're selling something.
Absolutely. And in aviation, the interesting thing is there's less tolerance for bad sales abilities, bad sales people, bad sales processes, and things like that, because there is such a high fixed cost for most aviation businesses. They've got insurance, they've got hangar rent, they've got airplanes sitting on the ramp, they've got maintenance, they've got a lot of things that are fixed costs that don't matter. It doesn't matter how much they're selling, they still have to pay those fixed costs every month, right? Mm-hmm. There are some variable costs that go up and down depending on how much business you're doing, but there's such a high percentage of those expenses that happen regardless of how many sales that you make, that 1 month of poor sales or 3 months of poor sales matters a whole lot more to an aviation business than it might mean to somebody that doesn't have those really high fixed costs, right?
And what's interesting is in an economy downturn, the first place they cut is in marketing and sales.
Exactly.
Does not make sense.
That is so short-sighted.
That ought to be where they increase the dollars.
Right. If there's any place that you can cut back, it would be, on the tail end, because you can always beef that up as you get customers. Right. And get the nice seat covers or whatever,
You say even if you have a product or service, you sell it and then you go make it if you have to.
Yeah. In fact, that's become a very common trend in a lot of businesses, is to sell and have the customers help define your product. Get their money up front and then develop the product as you go forward. So as long as that's all understood, if you've got great salespeople and no product, you'll still do all right.
Yep.
Okay. So one of the problems that we run into is very narrowly defined job descriptions for salespeople, especially commission-only or majority commission salespeople, right? Where they will say, this is not my problem, give me leads or I'm not doing anything. They're not out there beating the bushes because they really don't care. This may be one of many companies that they're a hired gun for. To them it's just a job. What you really need are people who are bought into your company and who are drawing a salary so that you can tell them what to do, and you can have a bigger impact on their behavior. You can make them come to meetings. You can have them be part of the product development process. All of those things are worth investing in so that your salespeople are really part of the company and not just hired guns. Right? Okay. So you want to make sure that those job descriptions for salespeople are broad enough to encapsulate everything that you need them to do, and also make sure that you're hiring the right people who are really pitch in and own it kind of folks, and not just the kind of folks that are going to shrug their shoulders and say, not my problem, when something goes wrong.
Yeah, there was a time when I worked for a very large technology company, and a couple of us guys worked in there, and what we did was we pieced pieces and parts together. The developers would come to us with all these things and say, we developed this product. Now tell us how we can sell it. And
that's backwards.
Well, I know, but this particular company was able to afford to have people out there doing that, and then they hire people like us to go put pieces and parts together and say, if you did this and modified the product like that, then this would work this way, and they'd go do it, and we'd prove it, and then they would sell it.
And they would find a way to sell it.
But they were very well capitalized.
Yeah. Most of us are on the other end of that, and we have to find the customers and adapt often our products or services to the customer's needs,
Right.
Especially in aviation, where people expect things to be very custom. So, we're not just taking something and sticking it into a round hole, taking a square product and fitting it into a round hole.
Well, we didn't either. We told them to knock the edges off.
There you go. Okay, so you customized on the fly.
Yep,
That's
pretty much.
Cool. All right. Another thing that happens pretty frequently that doesn't work is massive crackdowns. Massive, and I'm going to say intermittent crackdowns on the salespeople. This is not going to help, right?
Nope.
If you have the boss come down and with a big hammer and just say, everybody's fired, and everybody needs to do this differently, and we're going to have weekly, daily reports or hourly reports, and we're going to go crazy and do this way and get all draconian and silly. That does not work. Anything that really is going to work over the long term needs to be something that's part of the ongoing culture and is part of the expectations, and you've got the right people in the right jobs to begin with, and you're not just beating up on people who are in the wrong place and who are afraid of their own shadow, and you're sending them out on sales calls, and it's just not going. It doesn't matter how upset you get with them; they're not going to be the right person.
That's
all of a
like
sudden.
yelling at somebody, relax, damn it.
Right. It doesn't work that way. They have to be the right people, and they have to have a good job description. They have to be really well suited for that job description, and they have to have good training as well, right? Yeah. Okay. I am going to read a very short little piece of this book. This is the No BS Sales Success in the New Economy by Dan Kennedy, who some of you know and love, and some of you know and do not love.
But nonetheless, you cannot argue with success.
Exactly. So this is how to tell a good sales manager from a bad one. A good sales manager teaches strategy, coaches skills, and works with you to solve problems and manage your opportunities. He does not regurgitate any of the above 5 BS cliches, and you can read the book to find out what those cliches are. He understands and supports sophisticated lead generation and pre-qualification efforts to make your time more productive. In fact, he is a serious student of marketing and direct marketing, not just sales. So a word to any sales manager reading this, including those who I've just offended. It's past time for you to reinvent yourself, your know-how, and your toolkit, your modus operandi for success in the new economy. You can be an enormous asset to your company and greatly improve the productivity of your sales force by bringing in direct marketing to replace the old-fashioned beating the bushes and prospecting, so that your salespeople spend more time selling to people who are more likely to buy. A bad sales manager spits out the above 5 BS cliches so frequently and repeatedly, it's like he has one of those pull strings in his back and a computer chip for a brain. Saddled with such, you have only 2 choices. 1, ignore him, or 2, get away from him and go find a better opportunity. So there are ways to really help your sales staff, and we're going to talk about some of those in a little bit more detail going through this. The first one is to get and use a good CRM system. If you have got more than one salesperson, there is no excuse for not having a good CRM system. If you are the only salesperson in your company, you might be able to get away with a spreadsheet or some other thing, but it's a lot harder to do, right?
I remember when, well, this might age me a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
back when the company I was working for put together one of the first CRM systems. And all of us techies going, you got to be kidding. You guys can't figure out who you're calling and make notes?
Mm-hmm. Don't you have a notebook?
But it started there and has progressed to the point now where it's interfacing. They even have them interface with telephone systems so that when you make a call, it automatically makes notes for you, takes down the number, does all this other stuff,
Records the calls.
and records the call.
Right, absolutely.
So
depending on how much or how little you're willing to spend, you can get some of these larger systems that will integrate with your phone system and do multiple levels of commission and do all kinds of fancy stuff. But the main thing is that you keep track of every single lead and what happens to it and who has touched it and who is responsible for each step in its progress through your sales process. You should be able to tell how long does it take for each step of your sales process, and how much money are you spending on each lead. Mm-hmm. So you need to have a salesperson responsible for every one of those leads all the way through the process. And I did put some less expensive options over on the left-hand side. So, of course, the big ones, if you're listening to this, are Sage, Salesforce, NetSuite, SAP, Oracle, Siebel, Nimble, Sugar. Our favorite is Infusionsoft. We use that for ourselves and for a lot of our clients that are full service.
it's a middle of the road one that
Mm-hmm. For small to medium-sized companies.
Yep.
And it's a really good one. We like it a lot. But, there are some less expensive options that are getting better. We didn't used to recommend these, but, you can actually Google low-cost CRM, and it will give you a list as well. The ones that I came up with: Perfect Audience, Capsule, High-Rise, Insightly, Less Annoying CRM. I actually really like that name. Nimble and Pipedrive. Now, whatever you put in, everybody's going to hate it because it will be the thing that is telling you what you're doing wrong, and telling you what you have to do every day. So, a lot of people will complain, that it's the system that's the problem. But it's actually the work that's the problem. Sales is hard, and if Infusionsoft has a bunch of stuff for you to do every day, it's because there's a bunch of stuff to do every day, and that whether Infusionsoft is telling you that, or whether a spreadsheet's telling you that, or whether your boss is telling you that, it's still going to be annoying. So it really isn't the CRM that's the problem.
And what it does, it takes away the spend time that you would spend away from being on the phone,
Right. And when we
because it does it for you.
Yeah, and when we talked about taking the pressure off the salespeople and putting it onto the system, that assumes you have a system. And to have a system, you really have to have something, either a whiteboard or a spreadsheet or one of these CRM systems that is working for you, and you need to
Use it.
and crank down on all the bugs and just, slog through the process of making it work for you, refining your process. So using that system, whatever system you have, whether it's the back of an envelope or a whiteboard or a CRM system, there needs to be a person who is responsible for each step in the process. And you have to have reasons that people go from inquiries to qualified leads to opportunities to revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever steps you have in your process, you might have something like a inquiries, then a proposal, then a second proposal or a negotiation process, and then revenue. Whatever your process is, you need to make sure that you follow it every single time, and you use that process long enough to get some good data and have some results before you change it and say, we're going to revamp everything, and then we have no idea where we are, right? Okay, so that was our second point, is about putting pressure on the process instead of on the people.
And see, just like today, I called a company and made an inquiry into their product suite. We talked a little bit and helped me develop the products I wanted of his. So I said, would you mind mailing that email and that information to me? He did that. So now I'm in their CRM.
Now you're in their CRM. You know this because you're on the other end of that too.
Right. They don't know if I'm a qualified lead yet because I haven't emailed them back. And it's a little pricier than I wanted, but it does everything I want. So
Cool.
just got to wait and see what I've got to do some research now with the data they provided, and then I'll either get back to them and say thanks or no thanks.
So you are probably now a qualified lead and or an opportunity for this person.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably.
And you might think, oh, I can keep track of my stuff. I don't need to do this because I'm a mature person, I'm intelligent, and I don't need to be following a process. You know what? I thought so too, but this year I started making myself have sales appointments on Monday mornings with John. We go to a coffee shop and we take our pipeline and we go through it and we talk about every single person in the pipeline. And this is not a huge pipeline. We're a very small company, just the two of us, right?
But there's 30 or 40 every Monday.
Exactly. And if we don't talk through them, we forget about somebody. Heaven forbid, or...
But you have them in the CRM.
Yeah, I have them in the CRM. But even with them in the CRM, that's just a tool. We still have to do the work.
You print the reports out and you update the CRM with each step of the way, and we've got to the point now where I think, based on what you're making, 15% of inquiries roughly
Become
say
customers?
Yeah, customers.
Right.
Yeah.
So they get through the whole process, and we kind of know what the turn rate is at every step.
Yes.
Which is nice. And a year ago our sales were a lot less because I could catch up on the CRM whenever I had extra time, right? Like that's going to happen. But having those meetings on Monday mornings and having that time set aside where I've got no other appointments and I can't be distracted from that, really makes sure, number one, it puts me on the spot to make sure that the CRM is updated every Monday morning, because the CRM is no good if it's not updated. And number two, it also keeps all of those folks top of mind during the week, and we plan our weekly activities. Okay, well, we've got to plan some time to get a proposal together for this person because he had some very specific questions. And if we didn't do that, we would be losing out on a lot of sales, and our sales have been much better this year since we started doing those Monday meetings.
Yeah, and then I follow up with the financial report.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly. So then we see.
Then she can see what she's been doing and the fact that it's making a difference.
Exactly, and then I can see I can spend more money on my opportunity space because we're making it, and that's where our problems are, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Cool. So that's about the system. Now let's talk about attitudes, especially attitudes of the people at the top. I love this character on Downton Abbey. the grandma, the Dowager Countess. The actress is fantastic to start with, but she does such a good job of
being a snob.
Being a snob. What is a weekend? Explain this to me. But the point is, we've run into a few of these in our practice, where we run into a company where the boss doesn't really want to participate in sales because he feels like there's something dirty about it or something dishonorable about sales and marketing, so he wants to be above all that.
That's like saying you're not technical in today's world.
Yeah, exactly. Those companies we tend not to work with. And the reason is, that's part of the reason we do our free consultations, is so we can weed some of those out. If the boss is too good for sales and marketing, then it is very likely that attitude is going to trickle down throughout the company, and everybody's going to be working, because they hire people like themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going to hire people who are squeamish about making sales calls. And they're going to hire people who feel weird about marketing and feel like customers should just come to them because their product is better than everybody else's, which is a falsehood that doesn't do anybody any favors, and a lot of companies have gone out of business because they were too good to get into sales and advertising.
I've told this little story before, but I went with my daughter down to a couple of higher-end automobile shops to look for a car when she was trying to find one. And we went into this one shop and talked, and they escorted us to a sales guy at a desk, and he started doing his thing, talking to her, and he said, well, I have a few questions, and she started asking him questions. She says, oh, we don't bother with that. These cars sell themselves. Now, I didn't say it, but I came real close to saying, if that's true, where's the kiosk with the keys that I put my credit card into, and what in the world are you doing here?
Right. Yeah. There are very few things in this world that sell themselves, and you think about the things that they sell from vending machines. How much money do they spend on those? Coca-Cola, Hershey's, they're some of the biggest spenders on advertising. So you end up paying for it one way or another. And you look at the most successful CEOs or the bosses at successful companies, whether they're CEOs or whatever their title is, and they are consummate salespeople. Richard Branson with the Virgin brand, Steve Jobs, of course, with Apple, he was the consummate product demo guy. His product demos really set the standard for everyone else's. Akio Morita for Sony, incredible dude. And Howard Schultz for Starbucks. He puts his face out there. He really takes a stand on just about anything and is very willing to stand behind his people and his products. Elon Musk, Tesla and SpaceX. Mark Cuban with Shark Tank, and he owns more companies than you can shake a stick at. Sundar Pichai of Google. He's a very consummate salesperson of Google products and services. And Safra Katz of Oracle. She is out there, and these are people who are not afraid to put their name and their face behind their products and services, right?
Right.
And if we put that behind our customers, same thing. You've got Paxton Calvanese. He's at the EAA convention, demoing his product, and he uses it himself, and he puts his name and his face behind it. And Gene Clow with the Great Circle Aircraft, same thing. Chris Kilgore, he will do just about anything that Pat Lemieux tells him to do in a video.
Pat Lemieux being the marketing director.
Yeah, Pat being the marketing director, but and Chris being the CEO of CNL up in Maine. They do a lot of shows and things like that, and a lot of video marketing where Chris will do, he's done Annie skits and other kinds of things. John Stewart of Francis Aviation down south in El Paso area down in New Mexico. Down on the border, he runs a company that does charter.
El Paso is in Texas.
El Paso is in Texas. Santa Teresa is in New Mexico, but it's very close. And if you don't know where I'm talking about, if I say Santa Teresa, you're going to go, what? But if I say El Paso, I'll go, okay, I have a general idea. So, yeah, down in the border area between the U.S. and Mexico, there's a lot of King Air passengers and cargo that can go back and forth there. Doug Goldstrom, Greenville, South Carolina charter company, Special Services Corporation. He's a president there and does a really good job of standing behind his product. Shane Ballman, master pitchman, does a really good job of pitching to investors and other kinds of things. Ken Biard, you can see he's got his pilot partner headset on, and he's got pilot partner t-shirts. You almost never see him without some kind of pilot partner logo somewhere on him when he's doing flying or doing videos and other kinds of things. And Aaron Hill, Expec Aviation, they do remanufactured simulators.
Yeah, remanufactured simulators.
That is such a cool idea, because they take an old simulator and remanufacture it around the core and save people a whole lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
So the point being, these are people that stand behind their products and services, and in the aviation industry is a very trust-oriented industry. So people want to know, who is this guy? I don't trust companies anymore, but I do trust people. And if I've shaken hands with any one of these people, I know they're going to come through with whatever it is that they said they were going to do, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So big ideas once again. Sales accountability is a failure point in many aviation businesses. We want to put pressure on the system, not on the salespeople. And the buck stops at the top. If the boss has a bad attitude about sales or wants to hide in his office and, not get out there and be speaking and pitching and selling, then the business has little chance of success, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever fine podcasts are distributed. And please do leave us a review. Thank you for joining us, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks for joining us for Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the best place to learn what really works in sales and marketing in the aviation industry. Remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating.
You could.